All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We are officially live on the Take Action podcast on the 200th episode. This is insane. This is 4+ years in the making. This is from starting on a radio show, then realizing Facebook Live was a really cool thing to do, and then being at the radio show in the studio and running a tripod with my phone on Facebook Live. And that just kind of generated into eventually having a company that allowed me to have a studio space, and it kind of grew from there and grew from there. And now technology is so fantastic, you can do a podcast from your kitchen, so it's grown, it's expanded. I've interviewed some really great people over the time. I've learned so much from doing this. So for those of you that are out there that are listening and you're like, how do I start a podcast? Like, figure it out and start interviewing people, because you will learn so much just from those 20-minute conversations. You will learn. It's like these 4 years was a 3 college educations for me in the 200 conversations that I've had. And I feel very blessed to be able to do that. And I'm extremely blessed to be in the position that I'm in right now with the people that I'm around. They say that you are who you're with. They say that, your circle matters, and they say who you work with matters, and who you surround yourself with matters. And right now, I feel like I've put together a group of people that I highly respect. I've got a ton of respect for. I've got a ton of love for. And I'll introduce them one by one. Of course, Jen Kurz, my wife, who has been a rock in my life for about 7 years. We've been together for those 7 years. She's been a huge rock in my life. She's suffered with me, cried with me, stood up with me, celebrated with me. And she's been through the ringer with me, and I've never seen anyone work harder to take care of her family. Big shout out to Jen, the wife, who is a mortgage lender at Round Point Mortgage. Tristan, founder of Tristan Associates, Lab Code Agents, and people editor at Success Magazine. So, and probably so much more. So Tristan and I have had conversations in the past. Tristan has consulted me. Tristan has mentored me. But before I even got face to face with Tristan, I used to just read his stuff, man, because the guy just posts, he puts up a post and then you just want to read it. And then you watch the comments come through and you see how he answers those comments. And I can honestly say, over the years that you've had Lab Code Agents, and that's where I noticed you. I've really paid attention. I read your email newsletters. Like, I'm that groupie, Tristan. So you got me, bro. All right. Don Hobbs, president of Success Magazine. Don's great guy, great leader, president of Success Enterprises, I should say, not just Success Magazine, but the whole enterprise itself. Recently, Don Hobbs and I had a great conversation. I talked to him about my goals and how much I love coaching. Don says, well, maybe you should get Success certified. I was unsure about it. I did it. And honest to God, probably the best thing I ever did. So thank you for that, Don. Rudy Hernandez was in the middle there. Rudy Hernandez is the president and founder of New World Title. He's also the president of the New You Real Estate Conference that's coming up really soon that we're hosting Tom Ferry at. And he asked me to co-host with him, so much obliged on that. But Rudy and I have been working together for maybe 8+ years now. And we've grown a tremendous relationship. And I've seen Rudy go from a simple office with a few staff members and him beating the ground every day, just looking for more business and just with relentless growth. Now he's 20+ offices, 80+ employees, 3 states now. And he's upgraded, as you can see by the starlight on his roof in the car. And so he's winning in life, man. Gene Frederick, who is a huge part of EXP. If you're with EXP or Keller Williams, Gene's name. Huge part of EXP. I always call him the godfather of EXP. I think that's gotten around now, so more people call him that. It's kind of like you meet Gene, you got to kiss the ring, before you get any education. But Gene's amazing mentor. I've asked Gene some of the toughest questions, and Gene has had some of the greatest answers, and I appreciate your mentorship. And then Kevin Cottrell, who sat in my office one day and just spoke to me, and we had an awesome 45-minute conversation. And then the guy left, and I still had no idea who Kevin Cottrell was or who he was with or what he did for a living or anything, because his Facebook was super incognito at the time. And over time, we developed a friendship, and he brought up the EXP traction to me. And I remember after having that conversation, how this all goes around, just speaking to Kevin about it. Then Gene flew into Miami. We spoke about it. And I remember having a conversation with Gene and like, Gene, what's it like to rock it out, be on the top, make money, blah, blah. He's like, well, I'm conservative. You'll never see me buy a Ferrari. I said, well, don't worry. Stop right there, Gene. I'm going to buy one. And then anytime you're in Miami, you can borrow it anytime you want.
That's funny.
So still the plan, brother. Still the plan. But all you guys, I remember going to Rudy and saying, Rudy, man, what do I do? And Rudy stood, we were at a bar for an event. There was an app, like a networking event. And he's like, do it, bro. What do you got to lose? If you don't do it, somebody else will. So everyone on this screen I've reached out to for counsel, I've reached out to for help, I've reached out to for direction. So I feel like this is a super long-winded, but I needed people to understand why you guys are on the screen with me today, why you guys are on this 200 podcast with me, how you've impacted my life and the direction that it's going. So I appreciate you all. And thank you for doing this with me.
We're happy to be here.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
This is awesome.
So
Welcome.
we titled this particular podcast. We titled it "Fuck Failure," and we titled it that because it might very well be the new name for the podcast moving forward, 201 and beyond, right? But we, a couple years ago, I thought about this and I came up with this thought process that if you fail, by definition, you have completely quit at something. And I think everyone on this screen, guaranteed at the level of success that you're at, you have had hiccups in your career. You have had things that have really, really taken you down to the ground and knocked on your chest and hit you in the head. And every one of you stood back up and kept moving forward. So how can we validate that and call that a failure? I'm tired of people getting on a stage and telling people fail forward. I saw something on social media yesterday where there was like asking millionaires questions, and the answer, what would you tell a young person about to go to college? And this person said, try everything. And if you fail at it, it's okay. And I was just like, why? Right? What happened to the days of mentorship? What happened to the days when we used to tell our youth, hey, go work for somebody for free, serve them coffee if you have to, and learn the trade, okay? Like Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm a huge fan. Gary Vaynerchuk gets on and says, guys, if you're 18 years old and you just graduated high school, go find somebody to mentor under for the next 5 years. Get paid nothing. And then he says, by the time you're 23, 24, you're going to know so much and you still have your whole life ahead of you, right? And it's a huge opportunity. So I'd love you guys to give me feedback on this. Anyway.
I'll come in. I'll come in on that. So the first thing I'd say, David, is listen. There's no success. There's no success story. There's no successful person that's gonna. If they're telling you they've created success with no failure, they're lying to you. Obviously there is there's the ups and downs as we learn. But I think to your point, I think failing forward, and I know you don't like the phrase, but I think the phrase really has to do with how do we learn from what's going on. We don't quit. How do we learn from what's going on? Because failure is only failure when you said it, when you absolutely stop. Like if you stop, you're dead, it's over, that thing is done. But I think in the meantime, what we've got a chance to do is to learn from everything. And, we can go back to the oldest stories of Edison and his 10,000 light bulb experiments that didn't work. And if it wasn't for the 10,000 and 10,000 first that he tried, I'm sure there was some round number there, but if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have got there, right? So we all know that we're succeeding through failure. And actually one of the things that I've been quoted for is success happen. The path to success is through the fields of failure, right? We've got to get through some of that stuff. I know that I have many times trounced on stuff. I've been so close, the sheriffs came to lock me out of my building one time. I've had so many financial ups and downs. And I remember one time I said, I fell out of the sky to the tune of about $13 million one time, which wasn't much, but it's all I had. So it was a lot. It was like everything I owned. And, when you start thinking about how we learn from those experiences and realize, I thought I was invincible. I'll go back. I'll tell you a fun time for many of us. Tristan was there. Gene was there. Kevin was there. I don't know about you guys. 2007, 8, 7 was great. 8, a little downturn. 9, tougher. 10, holy crap. Hang on. Can we make it through this thing, right? And I thought I was even preaching it's going to be a long downturn. Save your money, get your money. I had lots of money. I was ready for the downturn. And then it went longer than I thought it was going to. And I got to the backside, right? But it was a very challenging time. And what did we learn from it? I remember looking at all my accounts. I look at them almost every day. I was like freaking genius. I was making all the right decisions on the stock market. I could do no wrong. Everything. I was invincible. And yet 2008 happened and I wasn't invincible at all. And I realized some of the moves that I made weren't so smart. Was I too stretched out in my financial things? I had buildings and homes and stuff all over the place. I was so stretched out. And I'll tell you that, I learned a lot from it. But, and by the way, it knocked me down because a lot of my self-esteem was wrapped up in who I had become with all this stuff I had, right? And so it was really a challenging time to get myself back up and to see myself through. Fortunately for me, I was, I had a good foundation with Jim Rohn back in the day when I was a kid. And I went back to some of that personal development roots and just, what do I need to do? What do I need to read? What can I do to get myself back up again? And all of that became the foundation for the next launch, which came in many forms. And I worked with Gary Keller for a little while on a project. Now I'm working with Glenn Sanford on this project called Success, and we're loving that. And of course, we've got this monster thing called EXP going, and we've got almost 800 people in our group. So we're constantly reevaluating, but I think you have to see the success as the foundation, the failures for the foundation for your next success story, whatever that might be. I'll shut up. I got some other smart guys that are.
And I love what you just brought up because I remember everybody felt, actually Rudy wrote a screenplay during that time. And I read that screenplay and it should totally become a movie. And I don't know why he's slacking on it, but it should totally become a movie. And so Tristan, I want to ask you, because you have a ton of interaction with agents all over the country, all over the globe, if you will. Do you think that what Don was referencing right now, where everybody feels like they got their chest out and they're like, everybody's awesome, do you feel like that's repeating right now in our industry?
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite of what we saw on the extreme end of failure, 08, 09, 2010. It's the opposite. And what's going to happen is you're going to see a turn and then people are going to get hit hard. And the thing is, we don't normalize, fail forward. I agree with Don. I think we need to normalize the idea that part of life is the ups and downs, right? Failure is part of it. And we don't normalize it enough because everybody's surprised when they're failing, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Right? And it's like, it's part of life. And the more we're prepared for that and we hang around people like this, when we're like, hey man, it's actually part of life, chill out, right? Let's get more control over this. You start realizing that it's okay. And I think that's what they mean by fail forward, where it's like, hey, you know what? All this is going to continue to happen. Don't even worry about it. You just have to get through it because it's normal and you're going to end up in a better place.
Do you believe in the power of words, the power of words, like the words that you put out, And so that's kind of why I wish we could find another word for it, just to be very honest with you. You know what I mean? Because failure is failure, no matter how you look at it.
I think we should do something along the lines of gene forward.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I would like that.
And Rudy, you're here in Miami, you're here in New Jersey. There's a difference, obviously, between the way the people work in New Jersey, the way that people work in Miami. But do you find a commonality between them, where right now this market, everybody's like a rock star? Uh-oh. Right at the time.
Yeah. I don't know, David, we're waiting for him to pop back in. I love what you said about Vaynerchuk. He wasn't around when I started out of school, but you've heard this story. But for the people listening to this, I was the young kid that you described. I got out of college.
Dave, you still there?
and everybody told me no
Yeah. Hold on
about
one
getting
second.
into.
Rudy,
You
you're
want- you want-
breaking up. Rudy, you're breaking up. So we're going
Hold
to
on,
give you a
it's
few
trouble
minutes to
connecting.
get out of that. Yeah. We'll give you a few minutes to go out of that area, and we'll let Kevin go, and then we'll come back to you.
So David, I think you know the story. Mattel Gene certainly does. I got out of college.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me now?
So,
Hey guys, can you hear me now? I apologize for the
college,
bad connection.
nobody would hire
Right.
me in commercial real estate. And it's funny, I'll bring this full circle to be a.
Go ahead, Kevin.
You want to try and get Rudy go? Okay. Yeah. So
No,
I got out of college.
Let's give him a chance
Nobody
to
would
get
hire
out
me.
of that area.
Okay. And nobody would hire me in commercial real estate, right? I'm too young. And so what do I do? I'm not going to let them turn me away. I go over to Marcus and Millichap's headquarters office in Palo Alto, and I'm like the squeaky wheel they can't get rid of. And I'm just like, finally, and this will hit right to what you said was his advice. I got them to agree to let me intern for free. They were just starting a new class of people they were hiring and training who were probably 10 to 15 years my senior with tons of experience. And the agreement was, if you hustle and do this for no money and you get 2 of the senior brokers to sign off, we will put you through the training class and hire you. And I remember being in the office, and Stan Jones was one of my dad's clients, amongst a number of others. And George Marcus walks by one day and he says to Stan, "Who's this kid and why is he here?" Right? Marcus had never hired anybody straight out of college before. And I basically hustle. I had to do it for free. I had to figure out how to make it happen. And you flash forward, I ran into a guy at the Dallas event last week who part of his business is he calls on Marcus and Millichap's offices. And I told him the story. He said, now I can't go into a Marcus office where they don't have 23, 24-year-old interns now. What you started in Palo Alto now pervades the entire system. It's part of their process where they vet and they bring in people. And that's just an example of, failure was not part of it. I got to tell you, it was an interesting conversation with my parents. Okay, I just got out of a prestigious 4-year college that, hey, I'm going to work for free for nothing. I have to live with you guys for at least a month, probably more. And I have no money, but this is why I'm doing it. And thankfully, they didn't throw me out on the street. But, it's just a perfect example of part of the challenge now is there's less of that. People think that, oh, they told me no, and they just go away, right? There's less of that perseverance to just hustle and keep going. And that's just always been part of my genetic code. I wanted a car when I was 16. I wanted a Ford Mustang. My parents were like, great, figure out how to buy it yourself. So I worked 3 jobs when I was in high school. It's just, and I wish it were more pervasive today, but it's not.
That's crazy. Rudy, you get good reception now?
I'm back. I'm on the turnpike. Best reception in the world. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you good. We hear you.
Can
good.
you hear me? I'm back.
All right. So
All right,
Rudy,
perfect.
going
All
back
right.
to the thought process.
You broke up now, Dave, and I apologize for this. I'm going to get to a stable point shortly, but what was the question?
The question was, you're working now in the state of Florida and the state of New Jersey. You're working with a ton of agents all over the place. Are you finding that agents right now feel like rock stars, but they're totally unprepared for the turn?
I don't necessarily think they're unprepared. I think that the ones that have the most amount of experience, like myself, for example, and I'm not an agent, but the ones who have been through the crash, if you want to call it that, have a full and firm understanding of how to protect themselves, and have a certain type of fear, which is not a bad thing necessarily, in order for them to protect themselves for what may come. I don't necessarily think that everyone has this rock star mentality or this fearlessness about them. I don't feel that. I'm not seeing it very much so. And if I have an opportunity to come across an individual that does, it's upon me to kind of bestow upon them some knowledge to let them know to be smart with their money and not make the same mistakes. So I don't necessarily, and going back to the failure part of it, I don't want to say necessarily that 2008 was an absolute failure. I think we just weren't prepared for what was out of our control. And I think a lot of what happened in 2008, if not all of it, was very much so out of our control. What was in our control were some of the choices and decisions we made financially. And that's a completely different thing. I wouldn't call us failures for what happened in 2008, though, in any way, shape, or form. To answer your question, though, that's what it is, Dave.
100%. And in 2008, I always tell a story when I'm on
David,
stage.
I could tell you this. I launched.
Hold on. When I'm speaking to people on the stage and I bring, forward the idea of what you just said, like, guys, put some money away, be prepared to win on the other side of the turn, because I was there for that and I saw people just completely crumble. But then again, there was like another group of people that had some money put away and they were buying up REOs like there was no tomorrow, right? And they were buying short sales like there were no tomorrow. And they were dominating in a time where the world was falling apart. Everyone was losing their houses. And I remember talking to one of these guys and I go, dude, you're buying all this property. He said, David, and I sold them 80 homes that year, by the way. And I said, I see you're buying all this property, dude. What are you thinking? Because I was fairly new to the industry and I was like, oh my God, what just happened was horrible. And he said to me, he goes, everyone's losing their houses. They're going to have to rent somewhere, Dave. And I got 80 homes in South Florida, and that was crazy impressive to me. Gene, I'm going to come over your way. So I do want to talk about something with you, is the level of success that you've had in your life, but now at EXP, when you made that transition, I tell your story all the time. You had ownership in regions of, the West Coast and Hawaii and so forth and so on, and you sold all of that to do this. That had to be probably one of the scariest moments in your life, or was it not? I don't know. I got to ask you.
Well, it's funny. I was on a call this morning and I said the same story. I said, the problem with most agents is they didn't burn the boats. I burned the boats. I sold everything. I sold about $750,000 a year passive. And I crashed it. And then most people would say, well, that's what I'm looking forward to, is 750,000 passive for the rest of my life. And at 59 years old, I said, you know what? I'm going to start over. Commitment to what you want to do. Here's the funniest thing. I don't look at anything as failure. I'm so glad you're getting to this. I just look, failure equals growth. When you're going through anything, there's a growth. Anytime, I used to call it having flat tires. I didn't wake up. Nobody wakes up going, I'm going to have a flat tire today, right? Just last week, I had one of my best friends in my life pass away. I won't get morbid on you, but it was unexpected. It is a flat tire. It is not good right now. I've got to grieve a little, right? Grieve with the family. Everything's a flat tire. But how do you react when you get it? How are you going to grow from it? Right? In other words, I look at life as just like, I'm like you. Dave, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I just look at it as succeeding forward through everything we go through in life. The only reason I'm successful is I've been through 3 major downturns. You guys have only been through 1. I've been through 3 major downturns. So if you've been through 3, you're going to prepare for the 4th. And I'm so glad you guys are talking about this, because there will be a 4th.
It's funny.
Well, Gene,
it's funny that you said
Gene, I
something
might
that
be the
I love
only other
very
person
much.
with 3.
I love that you said, why don't we succeed forward? And that's where I like to say to people, hey, if you just shifted your conversation and instead of saying fail forward, we say succeed forward. Hey, when this hiccup happens in life, when this flat tire happens, succeed forward, right? Get past it, So I love that you brought that up. Now I'll ask anybody, whoever wants to jump on this, and I know Rudy could jump on this because we had conversations about this in the past. As you become more successful, it's like the story of the crab in the bucket, and every time a crab tries to come out, more crabs come and pull them down, right? How do you deal with those folks that are trying to pull you down, that are hating on your success, that are Grant Cardone put out a post yesterday, and honestly, I screenshot it and reposted it because I fell in love with it. And he basically, his post was really sympathetic, like where I've never seen Grant sympathetic. He's always like, in your face, And he was like, look, I've got a ton of haters, but I'm sympathetic towards them because they potentially have so much talent they could be putting to work instead of wasting their time hating on me, right? And so for those of you that have seen massive success and you've had that, because when that happens to you for the first time and you go, oh my God, why does this person hate me? You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to win. Why does this person hate? And you feel like it. So for some people, I know for me, I'll speak, humbly. For me, it would take me down for like 2-3 days and I couldn't figure out how to make everybody happy. How do you deal with that in your success?
And I'll jump in on that, Dave, if you don't mind. I think that's just a common emotion. I think that happens to everyone, but ultimately, over time, it needs to become a mindset thing, and it needs to be something that is embedded in your mind that will allow you to understand that if that wasn't around, if that hatred wasn't there, you're probably not doing something right. And if the mindset could switch to that, ultimately you start numbing it away and you actually start looking for it and applauding it as it comes your way, and applauding yourself rather, and giving yourself more kudos, because you're not doing what you really want to do, and you're not really succeeding unless you have someone hating upon you. So I'll just leave it at that. I think it just needs to become a mindset more than anything else.
I love that you said that because Grant also said at the end, he said, there are people who are far more successful than me. And instead of spending my time worried about what they're doing, I want to spend my time learning from them, And so what a tremendous mindset. Tristan, I'm sure that you've dealt with it. You see it sometimes in Lab Coat Agents. Sometimes people got to get kicked out of the group because they take things to a whole nother level. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, every day. It's an everyday occurrence. whether it's racism, whether it's get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine, mask, no mask. I don't care what it is. It's always something. And I think the one thing that we always forget is that people are always going to give their opinion no matter what, and you can't blame them for it, right? It's just their opinion, and you have to expect that they're going to want to say whatever they're going to say because that's how people are. And I think once you start realizing who those people are, they're more opinionated than others, and they don't accept. Like if I'm talking to Don, I don't shut up and listen to what he's telling me, and I come from a place where I want to learn from him. Those are the people you can quickly identify as people you don't want to hang out with, and because it impacts you, it definitely impacts your life, right?
Yeah, emotionally, physically, even just the thought process that goes through someone's brain. It's like it takes you away physically,
Yeah, I think here's the one thing I'll tell you, and then anybody can chime in on this one to see. I want to know what they think too. When you have high-level people in a room and you're talking, that conversation is completely different than when you jump in. And regardless of how successful financially somebody is, if they're low-level thinkers, the first thing they're going to start doing is complaining about some situation over at somewhere else, or how unhappy they are with something. And you're never going to get to that part about growth that you want to get to. And to me, I want to be in the room where Gene and Don and Rudy and Kevin and Jen and you are, Dave, where we're talking about solutions and growth, not about complaining about somebody else.
It's like the Matrix, right? I want to sit in the room with you guys and just kind of like take it all in, I mean, but it takes a lot for people to see that and understand that, I think. So let's talk about building empires, man. Many of you are building empires. Kevin, if you want to run with this, like, Gene has built an empire. Don is in charge of an empire. Tristan has built an empire. Like, you guys are doing huge things, So I'm curious, what are some of the hiccups that you face when you're growing at that type of level?
Well, probably, David, the biggest thing is, back to the original point, I just want to tie this down. As Tristan said, you've got to be able to have the ability to remove yourself from toxic environment and people, right? You're never going to be as successful as you will be unless you just, without any reservation or judgment, just eliminate the detractors and the negative people. I've learned this in spades from Gene and watching him, and he and I have been together for 20 years doing this. And I've watched him in meetings with somebody across the table from us being extremely negative, and he'll just like brush it off like they didn't even say it, or just be politically, smooth about it and just go right on. But the hiccups are going to be constant, right? To your question, you have to realize you're going to have to iterate again and again and again. If you looked at, I can look back at like 4 years ago, what Gene and I were doing at the table, the corner bakery, meeting with person after person after person, and the way that we're operating now, we're probably on version like 20.0, not 2.0, right? We're changing things that we did 90 days ago dramatically in what we're doing now, with the fact that we have to be agile and adjust. There's a pretty frequent conversation that Gene and I will have where it's like, okay, this isn't working. Here's how I think we fix it. What do you think? And we'll talk about it. We had one of those conversations this morning. And, it's one of those things where the hiccups are just a necessary feedback loop for rapid growth, right? When you think about the pacing at which we're growing, what normally breaks in a year or a 5-year cycle, so let's talk about the brokerage business. When you're doing 1,000 agents a week, you have the opportunity to break everything every day. And that's the big difference. So you have to be comfortable with the fact, and this goes all the way back to when I was a rescue shaman and a paramedic. I was taught triage. I was taught to learn and get comfortable with the fact that not everybody's going to be really pleased. You can't save everybody, and it's going to be potentially at times a hostile environment. What we deal with in the business world is way easier than that. It's not life or death, but you just still have to do the same thing. You have to get the detractors away and realize some people are so toxic and negative, they'll never be happy, no matter what.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Don,
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, somebody's mic is open. Is that Rudy?
Yeah, probably. I'll take care of it.
It's walking across the park.
There you go.
They're walking across the parking lot or something.
I can hear myself think now. There's so many open loops in this conversation right now. So many different directions we've gone. I love it. But I think that what I was going to say, Kevin, about the detractors. First of all, there's a great book title that says "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business," and I think that there's a big part of that, which is people are going to hate. Haters hate. That's what they do. Rohn had very simplistic ways of talking about things. Haters hate, liars lie. I mean, it's just the way they are. But it's really because there's a part of them which is so insecure that they've got to tear down somebody else's something in order to feel better about themselves, which in fact doesn't make them feel better. But I think that, a lot of times we find ourselves playing smaller to play down to the people we're around because we don't want to lose their favor. We don't want to have them not like us. And as long as we do that, we're going to find ourselves keeping ourselves small. And that's where I think the real power is how do we just elevate people and then lift them with us, right? Bring them along. But, when it comes to
grow through people.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think people want to be around people that are growing. And if they're not interested in growing with you or because of you, through you, they're not going to hang with you long anyway. You're not going to want to hang with them anyway. It's not a good situation. So I think a lot of it is just learning who you are, what you want to be, what you're determined to. Gene's first word was what you commit to. I think, who are you committed to being? What are you committed to living? How are you committed to showing up in the world? And then you're going to find your tribe. I mean, look at Tristan has built a freaking tribe of people that have followed this man because of how he showed up in the world, and they flocked to him. That's to me. I mean, Gene is the same story. You're going to see it play out over and over and over again. You show up in the world, and people go, "I like that guy." Gary V. People love him or hate him, and that's okay, right? Because he's showing up in a way, and you go, "I don't like his style." Great, find somebody else. Go someplace else, right? But I think for the other side of that is there's also those who are around us that are close to us that are like family, and then they start picking apart at our success. That becomes a different issue, because then you're still gonna love them. You're just gonna love them from less time and afar. you're, you're just like, my mom. Listen,
in the Marine Corps, we used to say 1 arm's distance, bro. 1 arm's distance. Keep your distance.
Exactly. Talk about having a. What are you talking about? Working with your first company where you were learning from Kevin talking about his first company where he's learning as an intern. I had my internship with Roan. We didn't call it an internship. I was on straight commission, but guess what? Since I didn't make any money, it was called an internship. The only thing I sold the first year was my furniture, and everything else I could liquidate to pay the bills. And my mom's getting the nastygrams. I got my house over here. She's getting the nastygrams from my old, my car payments and that stuff, going, you need to get a job. And I'm like, I can't hang around with you right now because I'm having a hard time holding myself up. I need my own energy to hold me up. I don't need to be trying to pull you up along with me. And so my mom, love her dearly. She's still with us. Jean knows her. She's just a great lady, 85 and killing it, going on 60. And she says, I was negative. I'm like, yeah, you were totally negative. You were constantly on my back about, but again, who do we know in our life that's like that? That's going to pick apart whatever it is. You become successful and they're going, you work so much. That's the easy one. That's the one that comes at us all the time.
Yeah, right.
You work so hard.
You work
so much. Give me a freaking break.
Can I break something up? There's 2 stories I want to tell you. You guys remember Onassis? You're too young. But Jackie Kennedy married Onassis. Onassis was, at that time, one of the richest men in the world in the early 1970s. They asked Onassis, what would you do? By the way, he was self-made. What would you do if you could do it all over again? He says, it's really simple. Here's what I do. I'd work 2 jobs. I'd save up enough money to go buy a good suit. Then I'd work 2 jobs for another month. And I'd save up enough money. Are you guys there? I'd save up enough money. Okay, I'd save up enough money to go to that restaurant over there. I know where the rich hang out. And I would go to that restaurant in my suit and talk to people. And then I'd go back and work 2 jobs again and save up enough money to go eat at that restaurant again. Because here's the whole key. I don't really listen to anybody that's negative. You can talk to me. You can talk to my friends that are around me. People that told me, Gene, I started being negative to you and you just walked away. I said, I did? I said, I didn't know it. He goes, you didn't even listen to me. Here's my thing. I want to be in the room with you guys. I want to be in the room, number one, that think big, not big, huge, not huge, unbelievably past what we all think we can. As human beings, we limit our own thinking. We just limit our own thinking. I've done it. We've all done it. I want to make $100,000 a year. I want to make $200,000 a year. I want to make $1 million. Whatever it was, it's still a limit. I want to set so many big goals. I talked about it last week at our convention that I never reached them. I've really never reached any of my goals in the last probably 30 years. I just set them so big. I want to be around people that are thinking like me. Okay.
That's awesome.
Does that help? And here's the other thing. There's no such thing. I created this thing the other day because you'll go to seminars, you'll hear a podcast, and you'll hear people say, well, what do you say? How do you do it? There's no magic scripts. There's only magic action. That's my new saying. And all the top trainers talk about it. But quite honestly, go ahead and just take massive action, mess up, then succeed. There you go. There you go, baby. And I don't understand. People are like, I don't listen to anybody that's negative in my family. I don't care in my family, in my immediate world. I just don't do it. If they kind of know me now as the person that's not going to listen to it. I'm sorry. But here's the other thing. I live my life to help other people. That's it. The old Zig Ziglar, right? As many people I can help. So if we stay in that mode, set huge goals, keep them with them, write them in our own handwriting, have them with us at all times, you'll succeed.
That's huge. Let me ask you guys something because I can hear a lot of passion from everybody in different directions. And I'll start with Jen because I know Jen. So I got to ask, are you passionate about what you're doing in your career right now? Are you passionate about the position you're in currently?
Right now, yes, because
Good.
right now I do have the opportunity to train and teach other people. I think I was struggling for a moment in staying on the back end and not being able to do that. And with this shift, I've brought back that passion I had when I was originally a team leader, and I was also helping you with the brokerage. So for me, that's a big deal. And I'm a little guppy in this group, but essentially, I think, and just because I haven't spoken at all, and to add a bit, the concept of failure, there's a big misconception. I think people are being told to fail forward, and they're not being careful, and they're just putting themselves in positions that don't allow them to succeed. And because big people who they respect are saying it's okay to fail forward, you know what I mean? Versus understand that these are things that happen, but don't lose focus, and you just have to, continue to shift and take action in the right direction to succeed. And in concept of the haters, I also believe that people who do that, they're projecting. They're projecting, their own issues, their own inability to do certain things. They're putting it out there in order to give them, in order to give themselves, for them to feel like they have substance, like they're important. And essentially those people will do that for themselves, but in reality there's so many more people that see what we're doing as we continue to grow, and that actually do acknowledge the help that we provide, for those that are going out there reaching out to people to help them. And I think those are the people that are important and that we need to focus on.
Right.
So
and you brought something up pretty awesome, because I think, one big piece was that you mentioned before I wasn't crazy passionate. Now I am, because now I'm in the opportunity or the position to mentor others. And that's where your passion is. Rudy, I got to ask you, are you passionate about what you're doing? I know you're good at it.
If I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it.
Good. Awesome. And and the reason I ask this question is because there is a debate out there right now, and whoever you listen to kind of says something different, right? Some people say, do what you're passionate about and you'll make a ton of money. Some people say, dude, go learn something, learn a craft, make a ton of money, and then with that money, go do what you're passionate about. So it's like different avenues. Gene, would you say you're passionate about what you're doing?
Well, I just think oh my gosh, yes. I have more passion now than I ever have. Because to me, it comes from the real thing. I love real estate agents. I've been doing this for 38 years, and real estate agents are my buddies. They're my gig. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Renaissance man. I can't play the piano or the guitar, and I surely can't sing. I just love real estate agents. Okay, call me crazy, but and so I want to help them, and I want to help them succeed at whatever level they want to succeed at. And I think that passion comes through. I've talked to so many people. I can remember through the years, even when I was at Remax and then Keller Williams, people would say, well, Gene, I remember you were just so passionate about what you were doing. I hope everybody's passionate about what they're doing, even if they're sweeping floors, a janitor. Man, I passed some people that gave me the biggest smiles I've ever had in my life. And they were just awesome. And I could tell they were doing what they wanted to do. And so it's crazy to me not to do what you want to do, help others, and just make real estate fun again. That's my passion for the next whatever years I got left on this earth.
Hopefully many, because I think we all still need you around for a while. But
we do need Gene around for a long time. That's for sure.
Man.
Absolutely.
100%. All right. So I'll ask you guys, and I'll go around the room because we're at 44 minutes, and I promise you guys we try to keep it 45 minutes. But now I do want to ask, and I'll start with you, Don, if that's okay. What's the biggest hiccup that you've had in your career? We'll leave personal life out, but what's the biggest hiccup that you've had in your career, and how did you get past it?
Biggest hiccup. I mean, I'll describe, and I appreciated Rudy saying that we didn't do anything wrong in 2008, 9, and 10. We did make, choices. I would say that was probably the biggest thing. It was a financial beating, and it was a lot to learn from. Not so much because I agree with, I think Rudy said it, but whoever said it, I went and watched the movie The Big Short, and I remember getting out of that movie scratching my head going, I cannot believe what was going on behind the scenes to make all that stuff happen. Obviously the world was being manipulated in such ways, but the decisions we make for ourselves are the ones we can take control of. There's uncontrollables and controllables. And for me, what I learned from that whole experience was, to be more prudent with the dollars, to put it into better places, to be smarter with it, be a little more conservative, have the short term and the long term figured out. And of course, you like to think you're prepared for everything. Coming out of that, I would say I was a very different person in the probably in an ego fashion. Your ego is not always your amigo. It's sometimes hard because we like to be seen a certain way. I had the cars and the houses and things and the this and that, and there was a part of that which is like, I like what Gene said. He's not going to have a Ferrari. I appreciate that about Gene. He's very wholesome and holistic, and I've become a lot more that direction in the last few years since that happened. Because for me, it was about what I have is not who I am. Who I am is who I am always. And that part they can't take away from me. So, really being committed to the growth of those around me. I've always been a guy who's been, you talk about passion. First day I ever met Roan, I went, I want to do that. I want to give like that. I want to be able to deliver like that. I want to be able to be that. It's been my passion all along. You saw me break down in tears at the end of our session that day, the last certification for coaching. Why? Because that's a vision for changing the world of coaching. That's a vision for changing the world that we see in real estate. That's a vision. And when I saw it coming to bear, and I was like, this is so cool to listen to what you guys are saying about what's happened, what we built, what we've created. It wasn't about ego. It was about just watching something so special happen and unfold. And for me, that's impact. And that's been my evolution from the days of 2000, 5, 6, and 7. Look at me. Look at all that I've achieved.
To the point of why can't anybody see me?
to today, right, where I play a much different, quieter role, stewarding a brand, as you said early, a 124-year-old brand that is iconic in the industry.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
All right.
Congratulations on that, man. Rudy, biggest hiccup? How'd you get through it?
Well, there's been many, but I would have to say that the hiccups, the ones that stand out the most and that have been the most impactful, have to do with personnel, hiring, staffing. There's one that sticks out the most. It was a bad hire, which caused me some heartache, some headaches, and emotional distress because it was someone who was fairly close to me and someone I considered a friend. And so if there was a hiccup on the career end of it, would be was a bad hiring decision. And without getting too much into depth, that would be something that I would say many of us probably have to deal with, because it's the human aspect of what it is that we do. And we can't forget, especially in real estate, and I can't really recognize or remember who's on this real estate panel or not and who's related to real estate. But the one thing that we seem to forget a lot when it comes to real estate is that it's ultimately a people's business. And I think that carries true to a lot of other businesses and industries, but it really is a people's business. And it's the world that we live in, and we've got to be able to adapt to that and understand that. And so to summarize, the biggest hiccup was a personnel issue.
Awesome. Gene.
Was there a follow-up question to that, by the way, Dave?
How did you surpass it? How did you win again?
Time and making better decisions and learning from that mistake, and understanding and getting a firm and better understanding of just human nature and how to understand people better, communicate efficiently and better, and be more tactful with people overall.
Nice. Nice. All right, Gene, biggest hiccup, surpassing it.
Well, you know what's funny is I'm going to go a different direction. It's the last hiccup I've had. The last hiccup I had was 6.5 years ago when in my life I was not. Some people don't allow themselves to grow. Some people don't allow themselves to change. If you take the word change, look it up in the dictionary. It has the word grow next to it. If you're going to change, you have to grow. So 6.5 years ago, I was pretty successful. And guess what? My hiccup was, I'm going to allow myself to be more successful. I'm going to allow myself to help others more. And that's really was the biggest thing for me is analyzing how I could help agents. And 6.5 years ago, I found a model where I could help them tremendously. And that's what's exciting to me. So it's not necessarily I can go through tons of hiccups where I didn't have money. But here's my thing. Allow yourself to change. Allow yourself to be a different person. Allow yourself to grow. Don't be afraid to change.
Yep. Thank you for that. Tristan.
I love Gene's response there. I would agree. I think the last hiccup I had was that whole blog article with the whole bus thing that just happened to happen at the same time as Donald Trump's bus incident. That was a fun thing. And so with that, I think what Gene said really resonated with me because I could have taken a different path on that one. And I didn't. I learned a lot from it, not only with the people that I'm hanging out with, but also reflecting on, hey, was there anything that I could have done better? And how can I grow from this? And I think it just recentered me on the principles that I believe in, which, if you've read Built to Last by Jim Collins, dude, that's the way to go. Visionary companies, legacy companies, they all revolve around principles that regardless of what era you're in are still going to help you propel your company forward. So that's what I got to say on that.
Huge. Kevin.
All right. Well, probably the biggest hiccup I ever had and was actually how I met Gene. I was working for the last of the tech startups I worked for that went public. This is right around the .com bust. So I was a restricted officer. We went public and I had a whole bunch of shares. And the stock as a restricted officer was maxed out at about 100. It dropped to $1. Less than 9 months later, I got a notice from the IRS that they were looking for $3.9 million for a gain on phantom stock that wasn't worth anything anymore. So I kind of regrouped, talked to my father, who was a CPA. He said, there is no case law to cover this. It will be coming out because of what happened in 2001 with all these companies. You got to hang tight, go find something else to do. I was living in Austin, Texas. So I was like, oh, you know what? I know real estate. I'm going to get into the residential real estate business. Got licensed in Texas, joined Keller Williams, started attending leadership classes. And that is how I met Gene, and then went and shouted at him and he became my mentor. And 20 years later, we're still working together.
Wow, that's huge, man. And I appreciate this. I'll share too, because it'd be only right that I ask you guys yours and I don't give mine, right? So for me, it's been I'm still going through it. And so I'll share it with you guys in the discussion that, I built a company called Kurz Real Estate. And obviously at the end of the tenure of being Kurz Real Estate, we were 3 offices and 200 plus agents. And, we were having a good time, but we were going through the nightmares of owning a real estate company that grew probably too fast for our pockets. Right. And so we went through a lot. Went through a couple partners, and I had a partner who just said, man, this EXP thing is going to be the best thing that we ever do. We should totally do it. Let's make it happen. And we did it. And a few months later, that same person sued me for secretly taking the whole company, shutting it down and taking them to EXP. And it has put our family and our lives through so much turmoil, and we're going through it. And we've learned, we don't have enough time on this to tell you how much I've learned throughout the process. But what I will tell you is the biggest thing that I learned. The biggest thing that I learned was to be much more careful with the people that you put around you, and much more careful with the documents you sign. I think, you know, at that time, for some reason, I just felt so trusting, and I signed and signed and signed when I should have had attorney review. And had I had an attorney review documents long in advance, I probably would not be dealing with some of the stuff that we're dealing with now. And so, you know, if I've learned anything, and I remember specifically, we're sitting on the motorcycle, my wife and I, this happened while we were on this trip. We're doing a 7,000-mile trip around the United States. We're on the motorcycle, and I think we're going through Utah or something, and it's just open field and highway, right? There's nothing to look at, and I just got massively quiet. So my wife and I had headphones. She's on her bike, I'm on mine, and she said, "You've been quiet for about an hour. What are you thinking about?" And I said, "How could I have avoided this?" Right? And so she said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "All I can think is I need to make sure that I put our family in the position to always be able to afford a good attorney." I honest to God, right? I need to put our family
That's
in the
right.
financial position to always afford a good attorney, because
That's right.
when things come up, you just want to be able to say, you know what, this is not something I need to be thinking about right now. I need to be thinking about growing and doing bigger and better things. So, hey, attorney, go deal with this crap, right? And so that's something that really stuck in my mind. So that I wanted to share that with you guys. Man, I appreciate everybody here. And I've already told you from the beginning, I appreciate, you know, each and every person on the screen has impacted me one way or another. And, you know, from the longtime friendship with Rudy to the new friendships that I've built with Kevin and Gene and Don over, you know, well, Kevin and Gene over the last couple years, and Don recently. And of course, my wife, who has really helped me out a ton. I can't thank you guys enough for doing 200 with me, man. It's been amazing.
My pleasure.
It was awesome to be here. Thanks, David.
Woo!
Congratulations.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, everybody.
Great.
All
Make
right.
it happen.
Congratulations to each and every one of you on your success, and thank you so much for sharing, because that's what this is about. And hopefully we've impacted some people in the world today. So thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys. Take care.
All right.
Have fun,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.